Raulli, welcome to the Trails Collective interview series. How are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm pretty tired coming off of my 1 New York challenge, but I'm feeling good though. Happy to
When,
get the win.
so when did it end?
So it ended early Monday morning, really, and it wasn't necessarily an end date. It was whenever you finished. So I think it took total of 24 days, but all the participants have till the end of August, basically, to do the distance from Buffalo to Long Island.
Gotcha, but you have shit to do, so you're like, I gotta finish.
Yeah, no, and the last week or 10 days was this crazy schedule that you would never do that type of. I mean, I was doing triples, quadruple runs for a few days, just crazy stuff you wouldn't do in a normal training cycle. But for this unique situation, this virtual race, it was kind of what I needed to do to get it done, and I probably wouldn't be able to hold that schedule for another week or so. So I'm glad it was over when it was. Yeah.
So, how long did it take you?
So again, I think it was 24 days, and total running time was right around 77 hours for the 621 miles.
So, approximately how many miles per day were you putting in?
It was just shy of a marathon, and I actually took a day off. So, but yeah, I think on average it was around 25-ish miles or something like that. Yeah.
So, let's preface the audience. Explain what the One New York Challenge is.
Right. So it's actually put on by my friends Ellie and Timing. I'm pretty sure you're probably familiar with it. They've had a lot of upstate New York races, and their other company is Event Management. So they put on the Syracuse half. And so because of this COVID, the situation, I think it was the race director of the Barkley Marathon. He decided to come up with a race across Tennessee, and that's where they got the idea from. And that Tennessee one had 18 or 19,000 participants. So they did it for Race Across New York. And so I actually was like, all right, I'll help support it. A lot of the funds went to COVID relief. So it was for a good cause, and it was, something to help my friends out. But, and again, it's a virtual race from, I believe it started May 15th till the end of August. And you have either an option to do the 500K or the 1,000K. The 1,000K is, again, from basically Buffalo to Long Island. And so it started out as just kind of a thing to do, but it got very competitive very quickly because they implemented a team race as well. So so we were up on the leaderboard for the team race, and I was, hovering the top 5 for the individual race. So I was kind of like, all right, I think this is going to become a little more competitive than I thought it would be. And that's kind of how it ended up being.
So you didn't plan to do it in 24 days. You planned but that's
No.
kind of.
Yeah. And so they had about 12,000 participants. And I figured, as an ultra guy and somebody who's done, distance running for a while, I figured, all right, maybe I can, if I do 120 miles a week, which is a pretty kind of the high end of when I would do marathon training or something, I could probably win with that. And the first couple of weeks I was doing that 110, 120 mile range. And I was, again, maybe in the top 5. So I realized after a couple of weeks that that's not going to do it, and sort of got myself into a hole. So that's why that last 10 days I had to do crazy miles to make it up and get that win. And it was a lot more miles than I would have thought. But the strategies were very different. So mine was, again, maybe 1 long run, 2 long runs a week, and then maybe double a couple times. And I thought that would be good enough. But the guys on top of the leaderboard were running 4 or 5 times a day, which it was insane to me. And they weren't long runs. They were 5 to 7 miles, but you run 5 times a day, you're over 30 miles a day at that rate. So then I kind of had to sort of use their strategy at the end, and it's like, listen, two runs a day isn't going to cut it. And there were days I was doing, triples and quadruples that last week.
Yeah, that reminds me of what you're describing of. Have you ever heard of the Speed Project?
No, I haven't.
So in Las Vegas, it's a race it's like, I don't know, maybe over 200-mile race. And it's kind of like Ragnar relay style, except for you can shorten or lengthen the legs based on however you want. So, and the people that get really competitive, like I read the story about it, and there's like a video. And towards the end, they were so tired that they were doing 400 meters, 800 meters, and switching because they were racing these Europeans and they wanted to win, but they were just, by the end, they're so tired that all they could manage was a half a mile, and and they would just cycle through. So that's kind of what that reminds me of a little bit.
And that's what I realized too, is that normally I'd rather just bust out a 20, 25-mile long run and be done. But the recovery time for that is a lot longer as if you did, say, 4 runs of 5 miles. I feel like after doing that for a day rather than just a hard 20-miler, your legs feel better just doing the short runs, more of them. So I kind of, implemented that strategy again that last week or so, just to kind of, because at that point my legs, so I think the first 300 miles I was averaging like 640 or 650 pace. And then I realized, like, if I'm going to do this, and I think last week I did 249 miles in 7 days. And at that rate, I was like, all right, I'll be happy if I could average, 730s or 745s, because, it was all on the road too. Very little did I do on the trail. So I kind of had to pull back on the pace, and then my body was able to at least handle the miles, because I wouldn't be able to hold, 630s or 640s for a 200 plus mile week for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't even do that for like the 60 miles I'm putting in. So, so you decided to do this as like more of like a charity. And so where do you work, and how were you able to sort of like, hey guys, from this time, I'm just going to run, like,
Yeah.
because I mean, obviously, like, you come back from a run, you're not the most efficient, especially if you're running 25 to 30 miles a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's the last, actually, since November has been a unique situation for my training. So we had a baby in November, and I had 2 months of maternity leave. So that kind of opens it up. I didn't have to work, and I was actually training for 100K Ultra in March. But, again, with the COVID stuff, everything was canceled. That race was canceled. And then I had gone back to work in March. But the day I went back to work is the day that they implemented work from home. So that opened up a little bit more time, not commuting, and the combination of that, plus I was getting up between, again, the last 2 weeks of it, I was getting up between 3:30 and 5:30 in the morning, doing maybe 15 miles, and then I would help my wife get the baby up, and then before my 9 o'clock meeting, I would do another maybe 6 miles, and then do like an evening run. So that's kind of, it was a lot of sacrifice on her part too, because with a 6 months old, she was kind of like, all right, like, I'll let you do this for a week. I'll make some sacrifices. I'll kind of take care of the baby. And, I was able to get in runs that way. And then the last 100 miles were done in basically 24 hours. So this past Sunday and Monday, I did like a 60-mile day and then like a 40-mile day or something like that. But yeah, so the work life running combination of it all was, again, that's why I wasn't going to be able to do more than a week of it, because it became a lot. So it wouldn't be anything I'd do in a normal training cycle for sure.
So, I mean, you say it very frankly, like, I wake up at like 3, do 15, so like, what goes into thinking about this? I mean, like, because sometimes running like a lot, or even a workout, mostly workouts, like, then that day I'm just on it, like, I'm efficient. But other days,
Yeah.
like, I just can't even think. And I'm really glad that I go to a job that I have instructions, like, I know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
when you're doing like a challenge like this, how was like the other aspect? How was working? How was, trying to take care of a child and, doing all those things?
I was certainly, I mean, and I think, again, like, it was physically tiring, but I think it was more not like my legs or body were tired, as I needed some naps. So I think, working, luckily, so I work for a financial services company. I'm a data scientist. I do a lot of computer programming and that kind of stuff. So my whole day is on the computer. So really, I'm not up around. I'm just sitting right here at my desk and just doing work. So in that aspect, it was kind of, I'm still resting while working, and I can get through it. And luckily my daughter is as a 6-month-old, she's a very good sleeper. So I do pretty much get a full night of sleep. There's not a whole lot of getting up in the middle of the night. So she was great there, where I didn't have to worry about, getting 2 or 3 hours. I can get it, even getting up early in the morning, if you go to bed at 9 o'clock, you still get a decent sleep. So, and again, it wasn't that long of a period. It was a week and a half, 2 weeks max. So it was something you could, kind of mentally get through. And then now this week's going to be a lot of, just recovering from it all.
What does recovery look like for you?
Recovery is just absolutely not running. I don't really do a whole lot of cross training. I'm just kind of sitting around regaining the calories. I probably lost 5 pounds in the last week, just because all those miles, you consume enough calories to keep all that weight on. So I'm just, eating a lot and not running, and just spending time at home.
Do you have any other challenges like this that are going to come up?
No, I think I used my one crazy thing like this. This is the last time I'll probably do something this crazy. But I'm planning on doing races in the fall, but again, this year is kind of up in the air with what's going to be happening. So I like the ultra stuff. I still like to do shorter things as well, especially. So I moved from Syracuse I live in Charlotte now 2 years ago, and during the summer here, I realized it's very hard to train for long stuff. I mean, there's months where it's in the 90s, 100 degrees, and just crazy hot to do 20, 30-mile long runs. So I feel like now my schedule is summertime, drop down, maybe do some 5K, 10K training. And then once the fall hits, the fall here through January, it's perfect. It's 40 degrees, there's no snow, and that's the great time to get into really good, like ultra shape, I think, is through the winter. But again, yeah, I hope to do, maybe the good thing about the ultras, those might be the ones that come back first because there's not as many participants. So I'm hoping maybe a JFK will be open. I could possibly do that, or even a road marathon, like a smaller road marathon or something. But again, I haven't signed up for anything yet because it's still up in the air what's going to be available.
Yeah, I feel similarly, but I have to say that it's actually the exact opposite for me with training. Like, the winter sucks. I don't like training for long things in the winter. Like, I like doing the short stuff because it's so cold and yeah. And then also I just don't want to spend like hours on the treadmill. So maybe Charlotte's like the way for me to go. Like, I mean, because I'm a hot weather runner, I'm okay with it. So maybe you're selling it.
And I kind of the opposite. I am not like, hot weather's like my kryptonite. Like I would rather, like when I ran Caumsett a few times, I think the last time I ran it was like 2 degrees, and that was my 50K PR. Like it was just, I just run better in the colder weather. And again, Charlotte, again, I trained in Syracuse for, my whole life. And so I know what those winters are like. And luckily we were able to get into some indoor tracks and that kind of stuff throughout the winter. But here, like I said, it was 4 or 5 months of just, 35 to 50 degrees through January and February, no snow, and absolutely perfect. But the summertime is, I can't even, like if I go for 8-mile run, 10-mile run down here, I can go through, I carry hand bottles with me for 8-mile runs. And that's how crazy hot and humid it is, which I would never do in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I took a handheld on them. That just might be my preparation, but also,
yeah.
It's like you'll survive. So you are from Syracuse, and I was looking at your ultra sign up, and you won Green Lakes in 2017.
I did, and I actually I brought my trophy down from upstairs.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So wait, let me see that. Okay, so this is so strange. So my trophy last year, I won outright. And they had a first overall women's and then a first overall. Like, the overall men didn't say men. So I got 2 trophies.
Yeah, and then you showed them. You're like, well, I'll just win the whole thing, right?
Yeah, they turned it in. So that's very funny that they used to say men's.
Yeah, because that was 2017. And I got the other one. I got the course record the year I did it. So they gave me this too. It's like a map of the course and then the course record there. But that's funny.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I like your trophy.
Yeah, but because Green Lakes, I lived in Manlius when I lived in New York, so Green Lakes, I would train there. Even when I was younger, like 12, 13 years old, when I started running, I was always at Green Lakes, and I know that all the trails there and stuff, so I love that course, and it's more of a course that suits me. I'm not like super into the really technical stuff, but it has a good combination of the flat canal or the flat lakes, and then a little bit of climbing, and then the flat up top. So
yeah,
it's kind of like my preferred type of course is something like that.
Yeah, no, I like it too. I like how I'm able to like pass like a bunch of people when you're running, like because I just run up that thing because I'm like, it's only like not that far. So like if you get up and then you're just gonna be rolling for a little while, right. I just run up it and like I pass so many people. That's actually where I passed like the front 2 men is like on those things, and then then it's pretty nice up there as long as it's not windy, and it's a great course.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing is like I like the ultra distances, but for some reason, the race director feels like, all right, even though it's like 50 miles, we also have to make it crazy elevation. And so I like the distance. I'm not a super fan of the climbing, which some people usually associate it with like, oh, you're an ultra runner, you must love hills. And it's like not the case for me. I like running far distances, but the climbing is not my strong suit. So that's why I think I actually prefer now to really train more on the road and look forward to more road ultras and stuff like that.
I'm very similar. I don't mind climbing as much as I'm not a very good technical runner. So I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
living
me.
in Ithaca, I run up hills like every day. Like my normal runs have like 1,000 feet of gain. You know, I have to
Mhm.
stay in one area to do a workout because that's the only flat area. Um,
Sure.
so I don't mind that. It's more the technical. So and also like I don't like walking or hiking. I'd rather run the whole time. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
just yeah, I prefer just like the flat like JFK. I make it through the AT and then just cruise on that canal path. It's great.
Mhm.
No, I definitely, and I also love to train on the road. Like it's nice, and
Yeah,
I
and
like
I
going
think for
fast.
someone like you or me, who I'm sure, like working people, access to trails is not an easy thing. Let's, for instance, Zach Miller, right? He lives on Pikes Peak. He can train all day. And it's for me to be competitive, it's more of a, well, if I want to be competitive in the trails, I have to drive to a trail. And that's even more time in my day I have to take out just to get to the trails. And then it takes you 2 hours sometimes to do 10 miles. So just, in terms of being practical, I can get out my door and I can run on the roads and I can get in 20 miles pretty quickly. So I think that really suits, my lifestyle better is training for an ultra in the road. I can be more competitive just because somebody who's working and has a kid, that kind of stuff that you can get in the miles a lot more conveniently when you're just, on the roads rather than having to find a crazy trail somewhere.
And I prefer doing speed work. Like I like two
Mhm.
workouts a week, and
Yeah.
I like it. I think it keeps me sharp. It breaks up the week, and I'm not the biggest fan of just like slow, easy miles all the time. I'm like, no, let's go fast. Let's do
Yeah.
something. A little bit of lactic acid burn. Never hurt
Yeah. And
anybody.
it also makes it easier too when I do want to drop down and do a half or do a full. If I'm doing 9, 10 minute miles on the trails for 6 or 8 months, and then all of a sudden I try to do a marathon build up, my legs are like, what the hell is this 5:30 pace you're trying to run? Like, so even on the roads, if I'm doing, ultra training, I'm still hitting, 6:30s, and I'll throw in maybe a 10-mile tempo, in the 5:30 range or something like that. So you still keep that, that fast twitch kind of stuff in your legs if you want to do drop it down after like an ultra cycle or something like that.
I also find that I'm less beat up. It's weird.
Mm.
Like if I were to do like 10 miles just easy, and just all my mileage is easy rather than like 2 days a week do like some faster stuff. I find that my legs actually like feel better and like they're not as like I don't feel the 80-mile week as much if it was all like easy mileage versus if it was like some harder stuff.
Yeah. And then I also find too, like for instance, this challenge I did, I was on the roads most of the time, but the day I did like one or two trail runs just to get a little bit of soft surface. And the day after that trail run is the day I had to take off because you use all those kind of stabilizer muscles and stuff you don't use a lot on the road. And that one trail run just triggered something in my back, and I like couldn't move for like a day. So I was like, forget this. I'm not going back on the trails because I had to take a whole day off, and again, I had to make up for it. So sometimes when I'm off the trail for a while and I jump back on it, it just it triggers something, little muscles that you don't use when you're just on the flat road for sure, especially in the technical stuff.
I think there's a psychology component too. Like you on the road, you know your loop, you know where you're going, like basically how long it's going to take you, and there's some sort of comfort in that, especially when you're trying to do something as hard as what you were doing.
Yeah.
I think that definitely probably played into it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you kind of know your routine, and I'm very routine, like kind of metronome. That's kind of like how I roll, and then that's again why I like being on the roads because you can be very consistent with your splits, and I know, all right, or I can tell my wife, hey, I'll be back in an hour and 10 minutes, and I could be 1 or 2 minutes off. If I say I'm doing 10 miles on the trail, I might be back in an hour and a half or 4 hours. I don't know. So you kind of know, if you've got a schedule throughout the day, if you're on the roads, you can get it done, get a 10 mile in an hour or something like that.
You do have like mileage goals rather than like time goals? So what I mean is like,
Well,
so for our like our coach will say like instead of saying like 8 miles easy, he'll be like 60 to 70 minutes easy.
Yeah, and I know there's people on both sides of it, and I'm
Yeah.
definitely a mileage guy. For some reason, I think, because again, I just in my mind I'm like, well, if I put 90 minutes down, well, if I walk around the mall for 90 minutes, doesn't mean I got any better shape, right? So the mileage really means like I actually did the work. Whereas if I'm just trotting around for 90 minutes, it's hard to gauge as to, well, what did I really get in? So, and again, I mean, I'm sure there's good arguments on both sides, but I just happen to be in the crowd that does the mileage over the time. That's just my preference.
Gotcha. So so how long, you said you've been running since you were 12 or 13. So you started running in middle school?
Yeah, it's basically the modified, like the 6th or 7th grade. And I really started because I just kind of jogging with my parents and do a 5K here and there. And then my brother, who's 6 years older, I sort of modeled my athletics. He did cross country and that kind of stuff. So I sort of got into it again in 6th or 7th grade and then just worked my way up. I only did actually cross country and all the way through high school. So I just ran in the fall season. And then actually my main sport, I was a wrestler for 12 years. So I did that in the winter. And then in the springtime, I played tennis. So I really didn't run all year round until I got to college. But I really realized that after doing cross country and stuff, I would, again, go into the wrestling and tennis season. And then I would run a lot of summer road races. So I do stuff like the Utica Boilermaker in high school. And going into college, I wanted to do a sport. And I was like, which one is going to fit what I want to do in college and kind of the aspirations I have. And I realized that running was the one sport I didn't think I really hit my potential at. And also that's a sport you can do by yourself. You don't need somebody else to practice or to train with. And so that's why I chose to do running in college. And I always knew that I was going to be a distance guy because, like I said, I do the Boilermaker and stuff. And I would race against guys who just finished outdoor track season when I was coming off a tennis season. And I would, beat these 420 milers in a 15K road race coming off of a tennis season. I'm like, man, I think I just have a natural ability to endure these longer races, even though I don't have a whole lot of, 800-meter speed or something like that. So I think that's sort of why I made a decision to run full time in college. And then obviously afterwards now I'm, 10 years later, I'm still doing it.
Have you ever read David Epstein's book, Range?
I haven't, no.
So it basically talks about how, statistically speaking, kids that grow up not being forced to do one thing and dabbling in a bunch of different things actually are more likely to succeed in one area. So it kind of actually makes sense to me that you did wrestling and tennis and cross country, but then just in college, picked something that you liked and also you found that you were good at. But and also I played volleyball and basketball in high school. I didn't run. So it just, I think increasing improving as an athlete in all areas helps the running indefinitely.
For sure. And I think and I talk about this all the time when I'm runs with people, and I think it's just like a burnout thing, right? So somebody who runs 3 seasons, and I'll see people who are, even some 14-minute guys. I'm like, why do they quit at 22 or 23? Like they're so talented. They can make a lot of money on the roads. They can maybe go pro in the marathon. And they're just like, I'm just burnt out. Like I've run for, a decade or more, and I'm just, my body just doesn't take it anymore. And another thing is I think doing other sports like wrestling, for instance, is maybe the toughest thing I've done mentally. I think I can attribute a lot of my success at the ultra to doing another sport like wrestling, because it just mentally makes you so tough. And you think about like the stuff you endure there, and you're like, well, I can do this. So I think it's just a mental game too, where you gain more than just kind of the physical aspects of running a lot, but you've gained other mental, toughness from other sports. And I think the combination of that has been able to give me the kind of longevity I've had.
Where did you run in college? Where did you go to college?
So my first year, I went to the University of Delaware, and unfortunately in college, I just played with injuries. I had a stress fracture all 3 seasons at Delaware, and I actually transferred to Binghamton. So
Why do you think you got the stress fracture?
Just because I think the problem so Delaware's a Division I program, and for me, going from a 1-season, high school career, just cross country, to going into running 3 seasons, and kind of the summer mileage leading up to my first freshman year. I think we're probably hitting 70 or 80 miles, which isn't a ton, but for somebody who just ran one season in high school, it was just, an immediate stress fracture in my tibia. And that just led to an indoor-outdoor season. And then, so I just didn't have a great experience at Delaware that first year, with running and everything else. And then I transferred to Binghamton. And there again, I think I got a little bit more used to the mileage, but it just took me basically to the end of my college career for my body to be like, all right, like we understand, that you're trying to do 90 miles a week now and then no more injuries. So I think I had 2 stress fractures in my tibia throughout college, one in my femur, and then like a metatarsal stress reaction. So it's pretty much every year I had something pretty major where I was out for 6 to 10 weeks. And so it was a constant kind of flow of, I got into shape, got a stress fracture, and then never really hit my potential, because once I would get into PR shape, I'd almost have an injury and then have to rebuild back up again. So that's why I still like to hit shorter stuff on the road and try to get into track races if I can, because my PRs, I think, are pretty weak in the shorter stuff because I was never able to really meet my potential in college where you usually race those kind of distances.
Did it not just occur to your coaches, like maybe we should keep this kid at 50 miles a week?
I don't know. And I think that might be the problem too with doing Division I programs, because I was never a top, 7 guy. And so and they really in college, I think, cater to, we have really good milers and 5K guys. And I was always, want to be a 10K guy and stuff. So I just think, I don't want to say my coaches didn't really like pay attention to me, but I think it was, it was just something that they weren't, too overly concerned about. And so it just, and I think again, my body just was really injury prone, but the only way I could be in shape was do the high mileage. So it was kind of like, well, if I do 50 miles a week, I'm not going to PR, but if I do 90 miles a week, I'm going to get an injury. So I was trying to find that balance between the two.
Well, there's a 40-mile range in there that you had to work with.
Yeah. So, and then now I think, back then I didn't know anything about really training that much. And so if it was me now, I'd probably be able to self-coach myself to understand like how to balance it. But back then it was just like, all right, do what the coach tells you, and whatever happens, I guess.
That's true. Well, I mean, you kept running after college. Did you take a break at all, or did you just keep running?
No, I mean, I think the longest break I've taken was, I haven't had any injuries really more than minor things for maybe a week since college. So it's been, it's been a decade. And I think, again, the biggest breaks I've taken were just after marathons or ultras where I'll take, a couple weeks off. But right after college, I got a message from the Arises, the guys they coached the Stoughton racing team. So I ran for Stoughton Racing in Syracuse for 3 or 4 years right after college, and then went immediately from the college track stuff to half marathon training. So that's when I got into the longer road stuff, and ran for them until about 2014. And after that was kind of when I actually got into the ultra thing. 2014 was when I planned on doing my first ultra, which was JFK, which is actually a funny story. So I know you were mentioned, I think, in your email about how I got into it. And I trained with Jared Burdick and Fred Jocelyn, which I'm sure you're familiar with them. And they're my best friends. We were in each other's weddings and stuff like that. So they started doing ultras in that 2013, 2014 range. And they've had, obviously, great success with it. And knowing my ability, every time I jumped up in a distance from 10K to half to full, I kind of got more competitive. So I'm like, what, like maybe the ultra will be where I can be super competitive. So I signed up for JFK in 2014, drove down there. I think I went with my wife and my mom. And the night before the race, we went out to dinner, and my mom and I both got food poisoning. So I was down in Maryland, ready to run JFK. It's like 4 a.m. I'm like throwing up. The race is in a few hours. And I'm like, I can't even like get out of the bed right now. So we just ended up sleeping in and drove all the way back home to New York. And then I was like, all right, like next year I'm doing JFK. So finally 2015, the year after, I did my first ultra. And it actually jumped from my, the previous furthest distance I run was a marathon. So I pretty much doubled my distance in, one go, and had decent success. I think I was 6th at JFK. Me and Michael Warding were battling it out, I remember, at the end. And I remember the one thing in my mind was like, the race director there didn't really give comp entries, or he told me he didn't. And so I paid, the $200 to get in. And he's like, but if you get top 6, you'll get your money back and you'll get $100. So in the back of my mind, I was like, all
they
right.
don't do that anymore. They
Really?
don't. No. And I was upset because I paid $250. I got third. I won $400. And then when I emailed the race director, I was like, the last time you told me, like, because like in 2018 I did it and I had a horrible race, but he said that if I got top 10 you get reimbursed. I'm like, $250 is a lot of money. So of course, like I'm happy that I got third because it was like a very interesting race. But I was like, oh, and I get comped, and then I email, oh no, we don't do that anymore. And I was like, so I won $150. Let's be real here.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I remember in the back of my mind, Michael Wardian and I, because I think 6th place gets money, and I was going back in 5th and 6th with Michael Wardian. I remember asking him, like, dude, how far is the guy behind us? And he's like, oh, he's not there. So I'm like, all right, like, I'm going to get my money, or I'm going to get my $100 plus my $200 back. And that was my motivation, because I think I bonked at about 38 miles, and the last 10 or 12 were brutal. And I was like, just kept looking back. And luckily I made it. And, and then from there, I just kept getting more and more confident with the training. I never understood fueling in ultras. I think in JFK, I took maybe a handful of M&Ms, and that was about it. So, and then in the last few years, I've really gotten better with understanding that fueling is sometimes the most important part of these longer races, and I've been able to practice that more and more.
Yeah, my coming off of marathon training and then basically taking a month and a half off, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I signed up for JFK. My wheels fell off at the marathon distance, and then it was like a plug and chug till the end.
Yeah, well, I think the problem with JFK is that you get so antsy on the trail just to start like moving, is that it's about 15, right? You get off the trail, and I think I went from running, 7:38 minute miles to running, I think I probably dropped a couple sub-6 the first few miles on the canal. And I felt good, but I paid for that later for sure, because the same effort ended up being 6-minute pace. And I was just like, I couldn't tell myself you're getting ahead. And again, 35 miles down the road, I was like, yep, shouldn't have dropped sub-6.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. I can do this. And then it was like at mile 26. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
So looking at your ultra sign up, you don't race too frequently. Like you have a couple Caumsetts, and so am I reading the wrong ultra sign up, or do you just do like one race a year?
I think there's a couple things of that. One is I had a few DNFs, which I don't think show up there. So, but I think the last few years I did. So in 2018 is when I moved down here. The week before I moved down here is when, so when I won, actually got my Cayuga Trails 50 plaque here.
Oh, first dude.
So when I won Cayuga Trails, that's when I qualified for the world team. So I won Cayuga in 2017, and I did Caumsett that year. And then 2018, the whole first half of the year was prepping for the world champs, which was in Spain. So in May of 2018, I ran the world champs in Spain, and then I moved to Charlotte. And then from there on, I don't think I did an ultra until the next year. I did the Charlotte Marathon, and I kind of got off. That's when I really got off the trails a lot, because again, I moved down here. I don't have a lot of access to the trails. I'm, just the suburb of Charlotte, so there's mostly just sidewalks and greenways. And but then in the beginning of 2019, last year, I was prepping to do Mad City 100K, because I thought if I won Mad City 100K, that would qualify me for the 2020 World Team, which ended up not being true. But either way, I was in great shape, getting ready for Mad City. I think I did a 40 miler at like 6:12 pace, which is the American record is 6:13 pace. I'm like, shit, I ran 40 miles at the American record in training on some random road, and went to Mad City really confident. Again, got pretty ahead of myself. I think I was running again the American record pace for about 70K, and then dropped out of Mad City. So I did technically race last year, but when I dropped out, it doesn't show up in ultra sign up. And then 2019 last year, I did some more marathon training. And then going into 2020, like I said, this year I had another plans to do a road 100K, was in great shape. And that was going to be in March again, right in Tennessee, and it got canceled. So I've really prepped for these races, but either I've DNS'd or they've been canceled. So on paper, it doesn't look like I really raced a whole lot,
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
doing workouts and following a training plan like written to me by our coach that got me to the Olympic trials. So, but I'm not really jazzed by like virtual races, but I'm still training because I like training. And also I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd like put some fitness in the tank for next time because
Right.
I'm optimistic that maybe races will come back. Not signing up for anything, but and that's
Mhm.
just fun.
Yeah, and your body's going to remember those miles you put in, right? They're not going to go to waste even if you don't race. I mean, that's kind of my theory. So I put in these giant miles for this somewhat pointless virtual race. I mean, it was fun, but again, and it's like I was so amped up for that 100K, which I wanted to use again to qualify for the 2020 World Team, which they canceled that, which is in September, which was kind of upsetting because it's in September and they canceled it like I don't know in April. So I was like, all right. So but I was so competitive and so ready to go that I just needed something to do.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's why I think I got a little bit over competitive with this virtual thing.
sure.
Yeah. But again, I think my body's gonna remember those miles in the fall when I start training for something else. So
Definitely.
it's
Yeah.
the case. Yeah.
In the beginning of quarantine, my like friend Amelia and I uh participated in the backyard quarantine ultra. I mean, we had a cap at 40 miles,
Yeah.
but I definitely understand what you mean about like how doing like 5 miles 4 times a day is like a lot easier than just like 20 straight miles because
Yeah.
I felt like I could have kept going for like ever, but I didn't want to get injured and this was just a fundraiser. So yeah, no, I completely understand what you mean about like it's a lot easier to do it that way. Like, pace yourself throughout the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was like, wasn't really paying attention to my weekly mileage, and then I realized I ran 249 miles in 7 days because I was just taking one day at a time, and I'm like, there was no way I could have done that, even doubling. So I think, yeah, for sure, I think that's proof that your body's able to recover, even the few hours in between. You can recover, and again, the pace slowed down, but I definitely think that's a true statement.
And now you're resting, which is lovely to
Yeah,
hear because it's like you the only stories you hear are like the Mike Wardians and the people that like, yeah, I did this and now I'm like going to the CrossFit gym. It's like actually, after like that 40 miler, Amelia and I took like the next 2 weeks off. We're like,
yeah,
I
no,
mean, it's just like, I mean, it's hard to like being injured during this time would just suck.
mhm,
So, I mean, you got to have something to do.
right, for sure.
So, to close out the interview, I just want to give people a place to find you online, like an Instagram, or if you have a website, or just yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, most of my handles I think are just at Chris Raulli or C Raulli 88 is Instagram. Um, I'm really not active on Twitter. I think I have a Twitter, but and then I'm on Facebook and Strava. So Chris Raulli. Luckily there's not a whole lot of Chris Raullis. There might be one or two that you might find, but typically I'll have like a running profile or something or picture. But yeah, C Raulli 88 on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn too if you want that. But,
Cool. Do you win anything for your 1,000K challenge?
I don't know. I know I get a participant medal and a shirt, but I'm not
Yes,
sure if I really,
that's
really
all
win
you
anything.
need.
But yeah, it's the pride. It's just representing upstate New York.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I
Well,
mean there were literally people from Germany all over the world with 12,000 participants. So I felt kind of the need to be like, all right, this is a Central New York put on race, and it's through New York. I live in Charlotte now, but in my heart, I'm a Central New York guy. So I felt like I had to kind of win it for them.
It's I'm really glad you picked this one instead of the Tennessee one.
Yeah,
And I like they're both fine, but like 19,000 people and that's like $60 a pop. That's so much money. Like I
yeah.
don't know what he's doing with it, but like I mean, just going from like Barkley where it's like give me a license plate and $1 to like six like a lot of
Yeah, and
people.
that's I think a lot of people caught on to this, and there are a lot of other states that are in Pennsylvania because there's no upfront costs, there's no police you have to do like any sort of intersection, so the upfront costs are very small, and so when people pay $60 a pop, yeah, there's a lot of money to be made. So I'd be interested to see if after all the quarantine ends, if this is still a thing next year, or if people are like, nah, like there's real races to do, and the
Yeah.
virtual stuff was a one and done kind of thing. So
Yeah,
it'll be
I mean,
interesting.
I just don't get jazzed for virtual events. Like
Yeah,
like what I like about racing is like the community. So
yeah, and that
I
was
run alone all the time. I'd rather go and spend my money to hang out with people.
yeah. No, I don't think I would ever do a virtual race other than this very unique situation. And again, it was frustrating just with the way it played out because you have to look at the leaderboard and be like, all right, by the end of the day, like, what did this guy do? When you're racing someone, you're next to them, and like, I'll just cover their move right at that
Yeah.
moment. And that was my fear is, I was behind going into the last day, and I'm like, all right, well, then I'm just going to log at the very end of the day and kind of get up early and finish it off early in the morning before they have time to react. So it's a very different strategy when you're doing something like this. So, but again, I don't think I would
like
do
midnight miles.
What's that?
Sneak attack, midnight miles.
Yeah, it honestly wasn't like a sit and kick 100K. That's really what it ended up being, which is kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah, speed project though. I think I'll put you on my team. I think that'd be a great I have this vision of going to Vegas and doing the speed project, and I've got a couple people that I'm like, this would be awesome.
Yeah, I love Vegas too, so it'd be fun to do.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for talking to me this morning, Chris, and happy recovery. And talk to you. See you online. See you out there.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thanks a lot.